All right, we're live.
Hello, iMore. All right. I need to check out the date. It's the 15th. That's right. It is Thursday, February 15th, 2018. Valentine's candy is now half off, so I suggest you get to your stores. But before that, it's the iMore Show. Hi, folks. I'm Serenity Caldwell, managing editor of iMore.com, and we're going to talk about HomePod today, iMessage bugs, and silicone staining wood. What is it all about? How does it work? Joining me today is senior editor Micah Sargent. How are you doing, Micah?
Not bad, not bad. Now I'm keeping an eye on that HomePod back there because it might be staining that wood surface I have it sitting on.
You're like slight slow glare. Also joining me is assistant managing editor Lori Gill.
Hello, how are you today? I actually have my HomePod sitting on a 45-year-old pair of Pioneer speakers, and I'm purposefully leaving them there to see if it happens to me. It hasn't happened yet. I have no ring. I have no stain. I did not put down a car.
Ringless.
So we'll see. I'm a little like about it because they're 45-year-old speakers, but there's also already some stains on it from,
Life.
beers being set there. So I'm only a little concerned. If it stains, I don't think I'm gonna make that big of an issue about it. So
yeah, well, let's start the podcast off talking about this because this is undoubtedly, sadly, the biggest Apple news of the week, which is actually it was first discovered last week, and this is the thing that kind of surprises me, is that Pocket I did on my wood, and it's not coming off as well as I'd like it to, and this is what Apple told me. But Pocket Lint's initial review, I guess it just went over everybody's head or no one caught it, except for the Wirecutter, which yesterday on Valentine's Day released its own HomePod review, which included the fun fact that the HomePod silicone base has a tendency on certain treated wood furniture to leave these white rings after it's been set down there for a certain period of time. Which of course is a little bit surprising and a little bit perturbing for people who may have set their HomePod down on really nice wood furniture. So I have a couple of thoughts about this. Let's divide it up into a couple little pre-chunk segments. First, Lori, you already mentioned you have your HomePod set down on 45-year-old wood speakers, and you haven't seen a ring quite yet. Have you tried it on any other surfaces?
I had it on this desk here, which is, it's press board. It's laminated press board, so that's not even going to probably matter. I set it on my living room table, which is, it's like blonde wood with a clear coat. It's also, not an expensive piece of furniture. So those are the only two pieces of wood that I've set my HomePod on. And no rings to either. And the 45-year-old Pioneer speakers, that's where it's been sitting for almost a full week as of right now. And with loud music playing, with movies running, TV shows running, like it will play audio at 8 hours straight at certain points of the day. So like I've been using that HomePod on that piece of wood for a week straight for long periods of time.
Yeah. Micah, what about you? Have you experienced any rings of death on your HomePod?
No, I haven't. I have not sat it on any actual wood surfaces. In fact, I don't have many actual wood surfaces because I don't think bamboo counts, and that's like the only actual wood surfaces that I have in my house. So the countertops that I have a covering on them, like a stone covering on them, and table is not actual wood, it's just press wood. And so yeah, everything's been fine in this neck of the woods in terms of one rings to rule them all. So I'm happy to report that hasn't been an issue for me. No circles.
And what about you, Serenity? Have you kept your HomePod on wood and experienced anything?
Okay, so here's where my personal feelings come into play. First of all, I'm shocked that Apple didn't catch this in QA, especially given the numerous amount of HomePods that have been floating around in Apple employee homes before the launch. This is something where and also Apple employs quite a large amount of people with high-level chemistry knowledge, and this is where, as somebody who was brought up to revere like solid wood treated furniture, this is where I kind of grit my teeth, where I'm like, I was brought up to basically, have instilled in me, you do not put other than tables. You just don't. Because any chemicals, basically, because things can interact with the surfaces, just like we've seen with cold glasses, right? You set a cold glass that has water in it down on a table, it's not going to end well for pretty much any table, but especially wood. And I don't know, for me, I just always assumed that it fell into the, like, it's glass and it's not fabric. Have my HomePod on a wood surface. I have it on an old dishes display cabinet that I use in my room, but I have it on a coaster. I have it on a cork coaster. But I did that before any of this nonsense came out, because I was just like, yeah, of course, you don't put weird stuff that could potentially stick, especially because of the way the silicone grips the bottom. I was just like, yep. That makes sense. You don't put it directly on the thing. And as a result, no, I have not had any rings. So Renee Ritchie has a HomePod, and he just bought a whole bunch of really nice, expensive furniture, wood furniture, that he set that HomePod on. I'm pretty sure he has not rings there. That does not mean a problem. This large, what I dig up chemistry wise, essentially with the finishing agent used in some oils. So some of the finishing agents, and when they connect together, the polymers can do really nice to the wood. That's very, very brief summary of something with more expand in a more way. But the on your wood. Apple.
Okay, we gotta say something now. Yeah,
the general, like,
there's probably a lag. Your video is cutting out quite badly, and also your audio is cutting out quite badly. So Lori and I have been keeping a poker face most of the time, because we could understand most of what you were saying, but it's gotten to the point bad where we don't know what you're saying.
Oh no.
Yeah, we lost you shortly after. Renee has a bunch of HomePods on wind furniture. Shortly after that, it got so bad we couldn't actually hear what you were saying at all anymore.
No, internet!
Like,
Yeah. I was wondering why Lori looked asleep.
So while you're trying to figure out something to help speed up your internet, I'm not sure all of the things that you just said. I know that you talked a lot about chemical makeups and polishes on wood furniture. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate on this one. And this is partly because of my own experience growing up. Serenity, you were talking about kind of being taught not to put things on your wood tables, on your wood furniture. And I grew up that way too, for the most part. But the way I grew up, it was, don't put drinks on your wood furniture without a coaster. I was never taught, don't put your remote control on your table without a coaster. And the reason I'm going to that extreme is that I think that a lot of people, they might have that same kind of, well, yeah, I grew up to be taught not to put anything on your wood table without a coaster too. But the thought was more like things that could leave liquid on your furniture, and I think because technology has advanced so quickly, I don't think a lot of our parents even had the thought of something made out of silicone could stain. And so I think, I didn't put a coaster down, so I didn't even think of it as a problem, because I haven't had enough experience with different types of materials interacting together in that way. I have a couple of other like home speakers, but they're made out of plastic, so I guess they're not having that kind of effect at the base. I don't own any larger pieces of equipment that have even rubber or silicone that I would rest on a piece of furniture. And I think that there was probably quite a few people out there that are like me, that like we've never had this experience before, so it was not something that we had even considered or thought about doing. How's your internet, Serenity?
It's better.
Okay.
I closed some things. I'm in a very rear room of our house right now, so the router is all the way on the opposite side.
Okay, that makes sense. I do want to agree with you, Lori. For me, I am very, very, my partner is not so quick to remember that things need coasters, that drinks need coasters. And so I'm the passive aggressive person who will look him dead in the eye while I pick up his glass and put a coaster under it and put the glass back down on top of it. But yeah, it comes to beverages and things like that. Growing up, my grandma was an antiquer. She loved antique stuff. She loved refinishing stuff. She loved fixing up old furniture. She loved all of that. And so she's very protective of these, pieces of furniture. And so I can remember, being told that. But I want to agree with you just in the sense that that was the narrative actually that I saw across different people talking about this deal. Whenever we weren't making silly jokes and things like that, people were saying, I never I see this thing and I see that I'm supposed to put it down on something, and I never would have even thought like, hey, this could possibly cause issues. And so I think that, it's lucky that that was something that comes to mind for you, Rin. And I think too that like the only thing that's a real problem here is that because there used to be like a little passage with whenever you'd buy one of those anodized iPods, and it'd say like a fine pair of jeans, the color will wear down over time, blah, blah, blah. Same thing should be said just somewhere in the HomePod book. We did it with the micro abrasions or whatever they were for the jet black iPhone. So yeah, something that's just like a warning. Hey, you got some nice furniture. You might want to be careful.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Despite, as I said, despite my personal like horror at people putting things on wood tables, and also something that Apple should have caught. No matter the fact that, as we've seen today, Caitlin McGarry from Tom's Guide did a side-by-side test with her Sonos One, and the Sonos One's little feet also make indentations on her table, or not indentations, but like little white areas. This is something that happens with a lot of silicone. So in that regard, Apple should absolutely have known, or at least have recognized, hey, if we make something completely out of a silicone base, it might leave a visible streak. Even if it's impermanent, still, this is something that maybe we should highlight to consumers. Just as if Apple had never done these kinds of warnings before, I would have given them maybe a little bit more slack. But as you said, Micah, we've seen them do these kinds of I'm really kind of shocked that their disclaimer that's just like, hey, think about what you put the HomePod on, especially when they're like, oh, the HomePod could be put on any surface. Isn't this great? Like, I don't know. I am of two minds on this, because on one hand, I don't want to give Apple an easy pass here. I think that, this is something they should have anticipated. And they should have, prepared accordingly, especially when it comes to people's potentially valuable furniture. But on the other hand, I'm like, where does the disclaimer line draw, right? Do we have to specify?
That's a really good point, because also it's really annoying that in the United States of America, we have to put caution hot beverage on things. And, you do wonder, but I guess there are some things that are just plain common sense. And to me, this was not one of them, because honestly, and I don't think that I'm the marker for common sense, but I think that people have like, I've seen enough people saying like, I just never would have thought of that. That it does seem to be more of a it makes sense that there should be a disclaimer. Because yeah, I do agree. We don't want to suddenly have like Apple saying, by the way, the Apple Watch, you know, if you run it up against a piece of concrete, it might scratch it. Like, you don't want to have to do that all the way through. But with this, I think this is one of those reasonable ones.
Which also leads me to question, again, like Serenity was saying, Apple has a huge research and development department. They have scientists that are very knowledgeable about this stuff. It seems almost impossible that this could have slipped through their filtered through their system before it went out to public. But I'm pretty sure that they didn't know that it was going to happen. And I think part of that problem might be that so Serenity used a coaster, so she doesn't count. But Mike and I have both put our HomePods, and Renee has put his HomePod on wood surfaces with no issue. There are people who put their HomePods on wood surfaces, and there was an issue. So, do you have to go out and buy 600 tables and test a HomePod on 600 tables to make sure that the silicone doesn't cause a reaction? That's probably not something that they had even considered, because the wood tables that they were using it on didn't have a reaction. I mean, I've seen pictures that come from Apple that I have reason to believe were wood tables. So they've used it on their own wood surfaces with no issue. So I do think they didn't know. It went out without them knowing it. And, Apple they're the kind of company that's not particularly good at apologizing for mistakes. They just sort of fix the mistake or present options for what to do if it comes out, without saying, oh yeah, we didn't know, sorry. They don't, which is, that's okay. Companies, you don't have to apologize for things. So I think that, like, just from this perspective, like with what Micah, you're saying about how this is not this is not the kind of thing that should be typically known. It's not like, don't put this tiny piece of plastic down your throat. Don't eat the or the Tide Pods. This isn't a don't eat the Tide Pods situation. But because of the fact that it exists, I think Apple didn't know until it happened. And now they're they're kind of giving some helpful tips in hindsight. And this is it's not their fault, even though it seems like it could have been caught. It's a random thing that popped up that it's not really their fault. I think, like I said, unless you test it on 600 different pieces of wood, you're not going to know for sure if that's going to have an effect on it or not. And their solution is the only solution possible. Don't put it on wood, put something underneath it to protect it. If you did get a ring, take the HomePod off it, and hopefully it'll go away by itself. And if it doesn't, use the type of cleaning process that the original wood manufacturer suggests for it.
So sorry, I just am asking, can someone explain why would that work? The take it off. Do we know? Like,
yeah,
that didn't make sense to me personally, but I don't understand.
So the way that this is, again, the way that wood works is that it's constantly evolving and changing. And there are a couple of different things that regularly interact with wood, including oxygen, including humidity, and sunlight. So when you're trapping, say, when you're putting silicone down on wood, you're not allowing anything else but those silicone molecules to interact with the wood. And because the HomePod has kind of a tight seal around that, there's no way for excess oxygen, humidity, et cetera, to get inside there to augment or adversely affect the wood. So that when you take the HomePod off, all of a sudden the table has access to all of those things, access to sunlight, access to humidity, et cetera. And just that alone can balance happens between the silicone molds.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's part of it. And then if it's still, if it fades but it doesn't quite go away, there are other ways to kind of, again, rebuff it and equalize everything.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It does. It's almost like it's not a stain. It's a stain would be coffee that gets into the porous surface of your wood that you can't get out. It sounds like it's more a chemical reaction that changes the look of the wood, hopefully temporarily, possibly permanently, which if it is permanently, a buffing process helps kind of smooth out that chemical change. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So that's the thing is I agree with both of you. I think that Apple should include this in the packaging. I think that CoasterGate is maybe taking it a little bit too far.
Oh God, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if you have a product that is designed to be sat on home entertainment centers or anything that might be nice furniture, it might be worth just a quick mention of just like, hey, if you're gonna set it on this, silicone can adversely affect it. The AppleCare how to clean and deal with your HomePod support document that came out yesterday is perfect. If that had been in the box, we would not have this problem.
Which is another, I think it's great, but also under this circumstance, a problem. I love that Apple doesn't include a user manual. I think that it helps us explore our technology. I have always thought it was great that you have to learn how to use your iPhone, for example. I think it's fun to dig in and figure all of these settings out. So the fact that the iPhone, for example, doesn't include a big giant user manual is great. But then here's the situation where this HomePod, how to take care of your HomePod user manual was not included in the box. It's available online, but that's definitely in this situation something we should have known ahead of time, not something for us to learn and explore as we use our HomePod.
Explore how this can affect your wood.
Oh boy. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, sorry, this is a great product that of course has some flaws, but this is one flaw that I wish had been mentioned because really would help.
Yes. And I also I want to talk about something that's a bit of a bigger idea. One of the things that often happens when we come across a problem, an issue, something that a lot of people are talking about, something that a lot of people are dealing with. I love that iMore and other sites like other Mobile Nations properties are, but I think especially iMore is quick to try and help people find a solution. Yes, it serves us in the fact that people are looking for an answer and we can be one of the first things to help, but iMore is a great resource for people who are genuinely looking for help with their problems. And there has in the past and continues, I think, to be criticism of those of us in the sort of help / service journalism space who have answers for these problems. A criticism that what we end up doing is some sort of apologetics tour for the company or some sort of defense for the company. And I think that there is a fine line, and I think that I have seen examples of that in the larger tech space, a larger tech outlet space, tech journalism space. But I think yesterday, Ren, you put together an article that literally ended with return it. Like if none of these other solutions for the HomePod work for you, take it back. And I think that what your article did was explain what the heck was going on and then offered some solutions for how to fix it. And we have to look at the difference between explaining a problem and offering solutions, and then explaining away a problem and potentially offering solutions. And I don't think that, when we look at these things, every single one of these articles, it's not explaining away. It's people people A, need help with things, but B, I think people are curious and, genuinely would like to know what the heck is going on. And so it's not enough to just offer solutions. They also want to know, why is the silicone doing what it's doing? And you were able to provide that answer. And so I really appreciated that article just in general, and it was helpful to, I'm sure, a lot of people as they were kind of coming across this HomePod deal. But then I got a little frustrated because then all of these are, people tweet, they make jokes, their criticisms and all these things. And it was a little frustrating because I saw this reaction as like, it's either this or it's that. It's this black and white sort of disagreement that like either you wholeheartedly agree with something and you're in that camp, or you wholeheartedly disagree with something and you're out of that camp, and there can't be any in between. But that's just not the case. It's not how humans work. We're not black and white. We're grays. We're shades of gray, 50 or more shades of gray. And so, yeah, let me get that off my chest in a long-winded tweet storm here on the podcast.
Podstorm.
Podstorm.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. I mean, just to say something really quickly about that, like I am always up for debate on Twitter with folks, especially if they disagree with me. But at the same time, it is annoying to be like, yeah, I'm writing this thing to try and explain what's going on, and to have people assume that the explanations are just, oh, you're just trying to provide apologies. I'm like, no, I'm literally, I interviewed chemists. I'm actually curious about how this stuff works. So if you want to call me clickbait, that's fine. But just expect me to come back and be like, but research. Like, I do clickbait, but it's research-based clickbait. I don't know. I'm just making noises. Anyway.
Before we move on to talk about the wonderful things we love about HomePod, I think Micah has some interesting information for us.
Oh, I do. I want to tell you all about the wonderful thing that is Thrifta. So, of course, Thrifter, it's a new way, although by this point you're probably familiar with it. So let's just say it's a way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value and not hype. What the heck does that mean? Is that just a turn of phrase? No. What Thrifter does is looks for the best deals on the web, not just the ones that are like, something costs $4 and it's ends up being that like the sale price was the original price all along. No, these are real deals, real value, none of the hype. If you go and you sign up at thrifter.com, you're going to get thoughtfully selected tech deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy daily, without all the fluff. It's all the stuff and none of the fluff. I'm going to go to thrifter.com, and we'll have both Serenity and Lori go to thrifter.com. And
already there.
All right, awesome. We're all going to choose an item. I already know what I'm choosing because I literally just talked about this yesterday on Clockwise. The Anker PowerPort 4 is on sale right now for $17. It's a typical $20. So you get $3 off. If you do not have one of these PowerPorts, I recommend the PowerPort 5 if you can get it. But the PowerPort 4 is great as well. This is the perfect travel accessory. You plug this bad boy into the wall and you've got a power cord for your Apple Watch and your iPhone right away. If you bring your iPad along with you, you got that too. And then you got a fourth port for whatever you want to use it for. You get two of these, one for you and one for someone else. Then you've got a nice little travel pack there that you can take with you. It is so helpful in hotels and things like that to have this power port to keep things going whenever you're on the go. And also it's kind of nice to have at home. If you got multiple gadgets that you want to get charged up real quick, then you can use this. And in fact, I keep a PowerPort 4 next to my end table, and it actually runs all of the different cords and ridiculous charging things that I have there. Lori, what do you have for us?
Oh, I will tell you in one moment, but let me just back up your appreciation of the PowerPort 4. Every time I would go to a hotel, I would stay at a hotel, if it was more than just me in the hotel, we're fighting for the plugs, because usually the hotels have one plug by the beds and all of the rest of them are really far away. And you want your phone and you want your Apple Watch and maybe even your iPad near you while you sleep. And if there's two people or more than two people trying to share 2 plugs right by the light switch, and usually the light switch is plugged in there, so there's one free port. The Anchor Power Port 4 is so great because you can use one plug and have 4 different things connected to it. So that's a really great.
Occasionally they'll have USB ports, but I'm the paranoid person who will not, I don't ever use those USB ports. I don't trust those USB ports. I'm like, no, I'm not going to put my gadgets into this USB port that could short circuit or try to steal my information. So I don't use those.
Okay, so my choice is the Shanghai architecture set from Lego, which is normally $60 and is on sale right now for $48. I don't know if you're a Lego fan out there, anyone who's listening, but Lego does make these incredibly gorgeous architecture sets, and these are not your children's Legos. They're gorgeous. And so whenever they go on sale, it's kind of a big deal because they are pricey. So having it 48 instead of 60 is a pretty good deal for that architecture set.
Excellent. And Serenity, what do you have for us?
All right, I got one that I'm going to buy and one that I think everybody else could buy. So the one that I'm really intrigued in is Nano Leaf's IV bulbs, which are these really cool, they almost look like cardboard. Hold on. All right, there we go. They almost look like cardboard type, like black bulbs, but they have little circular pinholes of light coming out. They're just very cool artistically, and they are half off right now. So they're down to $50 from their $100, and you get 2 bulbs and a little HomeKit base, geohedra type base. I love all of Nano Leaf's lighting stuff, as you can see behind me. And I've been intrigued by these, but they've been kind of right. This is a low enough impulse buy purchase. And then the thing that I would recommend that everybody buys, this is something I got a while back, the Cobra Obd2 Car Reader. So this is something where, unless you probably don't even know what this is, unless you do some work on cars. But essentially, this is a little tiny, it's about that big, and it goes into your car's computer port, which is basically when you go and get $100 diagnostic when they tell you what's wrong with the car. This is essentially what they use, is a higher tech version of this. So for $13, you can buy the equivalent of getting a $100 diagnostic for someone to tell you what's wrong with your car. It also has a lot of other really cool features that you can use with like a compatible iPad, which include, you can see like at a glance what your tach is doing. If you don't have an onboard tach, you can kind of see what the motor's doing. You can set up speed laps and things like that if you're interested in racing your car. It gives you so much information about what's going on under the hood with your car. And if you have a used car, especially, we bought one basically to help troubleshoot Rick's car, Rick's old 2010 GTI a few years back. And it's invaluable. It really is. And it's super easy to use. You just kind of stick it into your car's power or your car's computer port, and then you just get to read off all of it on an iPad. It's super useful. So I think everybody should own one who has a car.
Well, there you go. That again is Thrifter. Head over to thrifter.com where you can find deals like the ones we just talked about and so much more. All the stuff, none of the fluff. Go sign up and be a part of these deals. All right, let's move along, Lori, to our next topic. Do we want to touch on the new iOS bug?
I want to talk about good things about HomePod, and we'll end on a sad note and talk about the iOS messaging bug.
Sounds good. Tell me all the good things.
What I want to talk about, and this is something that I think a lot of people are interested in, is how the HomePod works with Apple TV. And I am so happy with this. Now, this is from the perspective of someone who has never had a sound bar for my television set. I previously was plugging in my 45-year-old Pioneer speakers through the analog plug. And I have now replaced that with HomePod as my audio supply for my television set. And it's amazing. I have it off to the side of the TV. It's not the center of the room or even the center of the TV. It's off to the side of the TV, but the whole room is getting the right amount of audio. No matter where you sit in the room, you're still hearing the clarity as if the HomePod was in the center of the room. It brings up all of the bass sounds. So if you're watching Aliens, for example, that beautiful hum of the ship is just like, you almost feel it. So it's a really great experience. If you're somebody who was thinking about getting HomePod for your Apple TV, you don't already have a professional sound bar, and this was something that you were kind of like, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I? I'm going to say with a lot of passion that it's definitely a good one. I'm gonna have a deeper dive into the goods and bads of it. Just a quick rundown of a couple of the little quirks that I've noticed is that it does sometimes lose its connection for me. Not every time, but sometimes will lose its connection when I haven't AirPlayed to a different device. I'll just turn on the TV and it's not connected anymore, and I have to reconnect it, which is very easy to do if you just swipe down on the Siri remote. You pull up your audio settings and you just go over and click on it. So it takes 10 seconds to reconnect it, but this might not be something that is, it might just be something in the software that needs to be kind of meshed and clarified. Like when AirPlay 2 comes out, this might be a bug that's fixed. Right now, it just seems like a little bit of a software glitch that's just kind of working itself out. But I definitely think that it is absolutely worth the price if you want to use HomePod with Apple TV, if you don't already have a soundbar for Apple TV, because I know that there are really high quality soundbars out there, and I'm not going to try to make a comparison between a $1,000 system and a $350 speaker. So, obviously there are better sound systems out there, but if you don't already have a sound system, this is absolutely worth it to get a HomePod as your audio source for Apple TV. So that's my recommendation.
I agree. I think Apple TV and HomePod work really well together. So we are almost out of time here. But before we go, we should talk about the other thing that's kind of popping up in the news, which is, unfortunately, there is another iMessage bug going around. Micah, you want to talk a little bit about what this guy is and how it came about?
So this is interesting. It's a little bit different from ones that we've had before. We talked a little bit about the bug where if you sent a link that had basically a crap ton of information built into the iMessage preview and the metadata, then it would cause iMessage to sit there and try and process all of that data, and then it would crash the phone. This is interesting and particularly pesky for two reasons. One, it is a character that you send to devices, a single character. It's an Indian language character. And two, what makes it double pesky is that it doesn't just crass? No, it doesn't. It is crass.
It is crass.
It is very crass, but it doesn't just crash messages. It also crashes apps like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Outlook, iOS, Gmail. The Verge tested a bunch of different apps and discovered that it was crashing many of them. So we are looking into it ourselves on iMore, and there's more to sort of suss out here. But it looks like what's going on is because there are some apps that won't crash in displaying this. So it seems like this is an issue with these apps trying to decode and encode that character, and in doing so, it's causing the whole thing to fall flat. The way to solve it, of course, is first, don't get the character. Don't send the character to anyone. It's not nice. Don't get the character. And if you do, then trying to get someone to send you another message so that whenever you open up the messages preview, it doesn't show in the little pane, and then delete the thread seems to be the way to fix this problem. Apple will be, of course, fixing the problem going forward, and it'll be interesting to see how it affects third-party apps.
Yeah, it's it goes back to the same issue that happened, I think it was December, just a couple of months ago, of how do you prepare for this kind of hack to protect iPhones, to protect any phone from having this kind of thing happen to it? It's a very malicious thing. The only purpose is to break your device. So the fact that it's like throwing eggs at you when you're walking down the street. Like there's why would you do that to somebody? Somebody just created
why
this.
Did you do this to me?
Yeah,
it's a bad form of trolling, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And so here we are again, coming across another version of what had broken phones is potentially in 2017, and there's still no security measures in place to protect us, or coding in place to protect us from this kind of thing happening again. This one is different than the last one, so it's another new thing to come up with. I still have this kind of idea, like how does any tech company prepare for this kind of thing happening? You know?
Yeah. There's really
go ahead, Serenity. Sorry.
No, I was just saying there's really no way to prepare other than by, random talking about the weirdest QA process ever, where you're just randomly testing as many strange characters as you can think of until one crashes the phone. But there are things that as users you can kind of do until Apple puts out a fix for this code. The best thing I can suggest is using Control Center. And when you get a new message, looking at Control Center, because the character renders correctly as a preview. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's any way to delete remotely that text message. But what you can do is use Control Center, and if you have a 3D touch capable device, 3D touch on messages that are not that, so that you can reply individually to those people, or use Siri if you want to respond to a message without having to open messages. It's not a great solution, but there is a solution to still access your messages and get messages without necessarily having everything break.
Yeah, and that I think it's one of those things that people think is cute, and maybe, I could see my younger brother, he and his friends might do this to each other and they'd both be fine with it. It's perfectly fine. They're having fun. It's whatever. And it's it's such a silly, stupid thing. And it's don't ever do that to me. But I get sort of where these things come from and, the motivation behind doing them. But yeah, ultimately, it's just it's a malicious thing that just so happened to happen. And I don't think that anyone who is sort of reporting on these things, it just seems to be hey, there's this bug out there. I haven't seen anyone being how has Google, and Android not solved this? How has Apple not solved this? How have all of these apps not? No, it's just one of those things that okay, we've got a character and they're going to fix it now because they know that character will cause the app to crash. It's just one of those tough things, because the only thing that you could do is build a process where you literally feed the entire Unicode library through messages. And I don't know if you know this, but the Unicode library is huge, and it probably seems like mostly a waste of time, because in the end, so many of the characters work, and it just so happened they found one that doesn't. So yeah, this is just an unfortunate thing that luckily there's a solution for. And again, right now, if you do somehow get this character, the advisement is to have someone, whoever sent you that horrible message, hunt them down and say, send me another message, so that whenever you open up the Messages app, the latest message to show up is not that character. Then you can swipe and delete that entire thread, and then you can start over. See, that annoys me on two fronts. One, I've just lost that entire message thread, and two, you wasted my time sending me that stupid icon. That's doubly annoying. So don't do this to people. It's not nice. It's not nice.
It is not nice.
Well, don't. So the general rule from today's podcast: don't be a dick, and Apple do more QA testing on 600 different types of tables.
Yeah, I want to see the 600 tables. I want to know that they're doing that.
I feel like that happens, but for different reasons. Like it's not 600 wood tables; it's like different kinds of tables, so they can figure out the acoustic properties.
Right,
I don't know.
right.
They
No,
do
yeah, I
have 600
totally.
tests of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just not it wasn't this time around. It wasn't the right tables.
yeah.
All right, everybody. You can find us all, of course, on iMore.com, writing every day. You can find Micah when he's not answering phone calls. They're coming.
That's not me this time.
Oh, okay. Well, you can find both of our lovely co-hosts at Micah Sargent and at Appoholic.
Appaholic.
Appaholic. Excuse me, on Twitter. I'll get it right someday, Lori. I promise. And you can find me at Saturn on Twitter and Instagram. From all of us, I hope you have a nice weekend. We'll see you next week. And don't put your HomePod on your expensive wood furniture. And don't be a dick.
Yeah. And also quickly check out Renee Ritchie's Vector. I crafted the lower third and the new intro for his videos, and they seem to be looking good. So go check out those videos as well.
Fancy pants.
So sweet. And thanks very much to Thrifter for sponsoring this show. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye. And thanks,
Bye.
Jim Metzendorf. Bye.